Jefferson Robbins with NCW Life. The Wenatchee School District has 3 school board races up for decision this November. One of the candidates for one of those races joins me today, Martin Barron, running at large. Having spent 4 years on the board during a really tumultuous period, what do you feel like you've learned about steering a family of schools that you could then bring to another term?
I'm going to begin almost that it's more work than you realize, but you get back to a board needs to be collegial and work as a group. Statute-wise, our only authority is as a group. And in order to do that, you have to treat everybody with respect, and you also have to recognize how to work to something that is either a consensus or close to it, and take joint responsibility for it. And once we've made a vote, even if you disagreed with the details of it, then your job is to support the implementation of that. That critical board behavior is really, really important. I think I work hard on it, and it's one of the reasons why I agreed to continue for another 2 years, because I think I can contribute that.
And I think that was one of your key issues when you ran originally, Martin, was that you felt collegiality needed to be reckoned with. You were involved in establishing the norms by which the board operates, the board norms, they were called, I think, when they were adopted.
But actually, I need to give credit to the norms to people before I was on the board. I watched Paul Gordon's first board meeting where he basically trained that board, and then we worked hard under it. What I will take credit for is pushing, jointly with others, pushing hardly to do our annual board self-assessment. And that's a way of creating board norms and board behavior.
You've said that if you're elected, you'd serve this next 2 years term and then be done. Is that you see that as being the end point of your time on the board if elected?
That is correct. I think I bring a lot of experience. I'm a lifetime learner, multicultural. I've had a number of different careers, none of which are education, but I'm a great consumer of education and training and recognize its value. So I think I'm able to complement the professionals in the district to a considerable extent. And I do have a lot of background to kind of be a community elder. But it's important to get new faces, new brains, and a different generation involved. So I'm continuing for 2 years because we've gone through a lot of change. All 5 positions are up for election. We're on our 3rd superintendent in 3 years. And I worked very hard to support every one of those 3. And I have an excellent relationship with Dr. Corey Kelleher at the moment. So I think I can be useful, but as a bridge to a future school board, which will be different.
Well, do you have then particular committee seats or tasks on the board that you'd like to accomplish in the next 2 years if you're allowed?
The 2 I have are the Budget Committee, which I would like to continue with. That's one of my professional backgrounds. And I don't think anybody else on the board has that background. And actually, I was partly in one of the voices that got us to establish a budget committee under Bill Eagle's superintendency. So actually, we just had a meeting, the first one preparing for the new budget last week. And so I feel I am a useful sounding board for the district in that area. And yes, I would like to continue that. The other committee I'm on is the Policy Committee. And quite honestly, I hope another board member will pick up that heavy load next time. We rotate that one. And that is an essential and important work. But it's not my particular interest. My particular interest is I believe a good board director is there to make the whole district function better. You're a catalyst, and you're an encourager, and you're not an executive, and that's what I want to do.
The vote of the board that adopted districted elections, do you think that it was the proper decision to adopt districted elections? How do you think it helps the district overall?
I think it was an essential decision, and we were not the first people to take it. The city of Wenatchee took it earlier than we did, and wisely so. And in fact, our trajectory is very similar to what the city's was. The one thing we did not want to do is do what communities like Yakima did, which is dispute the Voting Rights Act, spend an awful lot of money, and still lose in the end. So it was a preemptive, wise, good move to do it, and then simply follow the law and the proper procedure. And I'm going to go on a little bit of a digression. People often think that school boards have almost legislative rights, but they don't. We start with the law, and all the policies need to be within the law, and you're guided within the law and Constitution. That's part of the oath. And so that very much is why we needed to do districts, to do it well. And I feel that this is actually campaigning. People get a sense of who's my rep, which they didn't have before.
Some of the things that a school district does, not speaking of Wenatchee specifically, but school boards in general, is adopt policies that are either recommended or even imposed from Olympia. So is there a role for a school board in saying no to a statewide policy that the consensus on the board opposes? Is there a role by which a school board can go back to Olympia, say, hey, we think you're making a mistake in this, and here's why?
You can certainly go back and express your opinion. You could do it directly to your own Senate or state representative, and that channel is one of the jobs of a school board. The legislative representative on the board does that, and the whole board can put in opinions. We also do that through the Washington State School Directors Association, WASDA, and they collect opinions, and they're the ones who actually issue most of the model policies. So you can get a model policy from the Directors Association, which is an impartial, non-partisan, but statutory authority. You can get it from the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction as a regulation, or you can get it by law. So I sit in on the Students Advisory Council to the superintendent, and I found helping out with a project for some high schoolers that they didn't understand how policies were set and how you influence change through policies. And so I sort of thought about it. You start with the law. All policies have to be lawful, and you can't write a policy that isn't lawful. It causes a problem.
The mission statement of Wenatchee School District involves making students future ready. And the new statewide school report cards are out from OSPI. In Wenatchee School District, 42% of kids met the standards for ELA, according to this. Only 28% met math standards and 34% for science. So is the district really meeting its own standard of making students future ready if students aren't meeting the state standards in appreciable numbers?
I think you'd have to say, no, we're not meeting our ambitions, our goals, or the standards where we want to be. The superintendent presented results a couple of weeks ago and showed some comparable school districts, and those were not chosen by us, and they were not cherry-picked. There is an impartial professional organization that does the job like a demographer of what are comparable ones. And in that sense, this is a national ailment that we and the entire nation of the United States face. And so, no, we don't have the results that we want to. From my engineering and economic background, I always like to look at dynamic measures, not static measures. You're looking at the structure, the training, where you're going from here. And you look at the future and how do I make it better? So yes, a result is very, very useful, but it is one point in time. It may not be most representative. From the data, you learn where you can improve and you work forwards. At the last board meeting, I want to give credit to Laura Jakes, who said that you've got to have longitudinal measurements. Otherwise, we don't know whether we're getting better or worse. And that's true. But I still think you've got to focus more on the future, more on how to get better, more on where are the areas where you can improve, more on training and helping and encouraging and taking care of the physical and well-being of your teachers, that whole package. So I'm not discouraged. We know we went backwards in the pandemic. If you look between the beginning of the year and the end of the year, the rate of improvement is actually quite good. So know when you're where we want to be, make sure we look in the hidden corners and look for all the talents and follow our diversity strategic plan goals. And that's how we got to do it. So yeah, it's a starting point. And for 2 years, it'd be nice to see if maybe some small steps can be made.
Martin, should the board have looked into the residency of one of its members earlier, given the questions were being raised by some school board members as early as April?
I'm going to answer that one carefully because it is a current matter. And I'm going to answer with the thought process I gave myself when we saw the public comment. The primary onus on residency is the individual director. That director knows his or her intention. Residency is a complex factor. I did ask for legal advice on what needs to be considered so that I had good judgment. And it is there's no single element that will define it. So it's a package of measures. And as long as somebody is on the voter's roll, that's one of the benchmarks that you can look at. And we actually, in this particular case, there was some change in that. And that was one of the reasons why I felt that it was a good idea to discuss it at the board meeting. Other than that, if you have doubts about a board member, you can go to the law, you can go to the policy, or where the board meeting ended up was following the ethics procedure to have a discovery conversation and get to the answer. So I think that those kind of controversies can be damaging to everybody involved. So I think you do start with hoping and trusting that your colleague will know what their residency is and follow the correct procedure. If you see questions that are legitimate ones, then as we did this last meeting, then you can follow up on them.
Can you think, Martin, I mean, I know the last 4 years have been a real minefield for school districts across the country. Can you think of any place in the last 4 years that the school board has made mistakes, things that you've learned from, votes that you've taken or policies that have been adopted that you don't think you'd follow again?
Yes, we always make mistakes, so we can always do better. I'm trying to think of any glaring ones and catching myself at a loss, because I'm a person who believes that mistakes are how you learn and that the important thing is to adapt and correct. I think I'll go into one that can be a tough question that everybody asks, and is did you do the right thing health-wise during COVID? And I think the verdict after the fact is we and everybody else were a little slow to get back to normalcy. But at the time, with the uncertainty and the scientific knowledge, plus the fact that it isn't an option to disobey the health regulations, that I think we could have navigated that one better. But I think they were understandable mistakes. Somebody else asked me, would we be better next time? Well, I think next time you'll face a different set of uncertainties. Hopefully you will be. But I would pick that one as the one which was most challenging and difficult for the students.
Martin, one final question. Philosophically speaking, what duty do you think a school board owes to its students, the 7,400 students that Wenatchee School District serves?
To give them the chance to be successful citizens. And it can be academic. Right now, we're putting a huge emphasis on career and technical education. But I still think the ability to think, be excited, and know knowledge purely for itself, even if it makes for a difficult career, is something that should be out there. So we still have that. But I talk about survival skills. I think this is financial literacy is something that I was involved in, a little helper in getting that into the curriculum. That kind of skill, the fact that job requirements change so fast, and that the phrase that the school district uses is future ready. And I think that's future ready in terms of having skills. It's future ready in being able to adapt. It's future ready in recognizing reality and believing in yourself and knowing how to present yourself. And so it's an array of skills that are almost like training early employees rather than I've got to learn to write an ad in the 3 R's. So that's what we do. It all ends up to be not only a citizen who can be responsible and understand, but a citizen who can protect, defend, and take opportunities for himself or herself.
Well, Martin Barron, running for the at-large seat on Wenatchee School Board, thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you for inviting me, and I've enjoyed speaking. Thank you.
You're watching the NCW Life channel.